This is Dr. Karen, and you are listening to the De Facto Leaders Podcast on the B Podcast Network, where I share up-to-date, evidence-based practices, my own experiences, and guest interviews designed to help pediatric therapists, educators, and aspiring school leaders design services that support social, emotional, and academic growth and set kids up for success in adulthood. Whether you want to learn effective strategies for your therapy session or classroom, be an influential leader on your team, or find creative ways to use your skills to advance in your career, I've got you covered.
Hey everybody, it's Dr. Karen, and welcome to episode 259 of the De Facto Leaders Podcast on the B Podcast Network. In this episode, I sit down with Kim Jenkins from Empowering Speech Services. She is a private practice speech pathologist, and she is also a member of Language Therapy Advanced Foundations. So you can learn all about her and where to connect with her in the show notes. In this conversation, we went in a lot of different directions. Obviously, we talked about language therapy, and the speech pathology related topics that we covered have to do with how you can be flexible as a clinician in your decision making, how you can use multiple frameworks to pull your ideas together and come up with a good therapy session. So she talks specifically about how she used the Language Therapy Advanced Foundations framework to work on syntactic structures and work on semantics with some of her students alongside some of the other models that she's using. She does use the Gestalt language processing stages as well. So I think she and I have a different way that we think about those stages. And so it was really nice to just sit down and talk about different ways of thinking about how to apply different frameworks. So I will also link to a couple other podcast episodes where I have talked about Gestalt processing and my perspective and some other links. But in this interview, Kim shares how she was able to use some of the syntactic structure frameworks that I teach in Language Therapy Advanced Foundations in her child-led sessions. So in Language Therapy Advanced Foundations, I give you some specific protocols, but she was able to use them in many different ways and not necessarily exactly the way that I have outlined them. So that was an important theme, is that there is one protocol that you can start with, but you can iterate on it and use it in many different ways. And then something else that was really interesting is that she has used some of the tools that I've taught for studying semantics to work with students using AAC, which is not something that I specifically talk about in the program, but she has found a way to adapt some of the concepts. So she talks about some specific case studies in this interview where she is applying the framework within the Gestalt stages, as well as with a student using AAC. And we also talked a little bit about building literacy skills, especially for reluctant readers. And also, Kim and I, we had a lot of different conversations about life in general. We talked about shows that we like and how that we apply them to work. We talked about our dogs and all kinds of things. And we also talked about how we can use different philosophies for things like our life, how we handle fitness and other areas of life, and how they might apply to our clinical practice and our work. So before we get going, again, I have mentioned Language Therapy Advanced Foundations. We talk about it in this interview, but Language Therapy Advanced Foundations is my program where I teach speech pathologists a scalable framework for language therapy that helps them to set their students up for success with those skills that they need to be successful readers, spellers, writers, so those academic skills, as well as the communication skills they need for life. You can learn more about Language Therapy Advanced Foundations at drkarenspeech.com/language therapy. And then also Kim and I share a handful of different tools in this conversation. So take a look at the show notes for all the places you can go to connect with Kim, as well as some of the resources that we've shared. And then I also mentioned several other De facto Leaders podcast interviews. So you'll want to check the show notes for those as well. So now please enjoy this conversation with Kim Jenkins. Today, I am joined by Kim Jenkins from Empowering Speech Services. So thank you so much for being here with me today.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here and talk to you.
I know this has been a long time coming since we share each other's Instagram posts and randomly message all the time. So I'm excited
Yeah,
to be doing this finally. So
I know. I
yeah.
love your language therapy foundations. I've loved that for so long. So it's really cool to be able to connect with you on social media after I discovered that.
Yeah, I know. And shout out to Amy Baugh, who I cannot remember the episode number, but we will link to it in the show notes, who sent you my way. So, yeah, we
Yes.
should do a podcast with all three of us at some point.
Oh, that would be so much fun because she loves you so much. When I told her that I was going to be on this, she's like, "Oh my gosh, I just love Dr. Karen so much." So she wanted me to tell you that she said hi.
Oh, good. Yeah, I reached out to her the other day because her interview was about how she has used the some of the information from Language Therapy Advanced Foundations to do other service models besides direct therapy. So she's was able to pull it into classrooms. And so that is something that I've been talking a lot about to clinicians because there's just a big opportunity once you streamline what you're doing in your sessions to kind of create that mental bandwidth to think about other things. Not that direct
Yeah.
therapy isn't also really important, but there's a lot of other things that we can do to use our clinical skills, as we were talking
Yeah.
before we started recording.
Yes, absolutely. She said she was using it for literacy with one of her kids right now in at a school that she's working in. So, yeah, there's so many great things you could do with that.
Yeah, well, I'll have to catch up with her and hear about that
Yeah.
sometime soon. So I had a question. I thought this concept was kind of woo-woo when I first heard about it, and I cannot remember the interview number, but I will post the past interview that I had with a previous guest about this concept of an alter ego. Have you ever heard of this?
Yes, I've heard of it. I don't know. I don't know a whole lot about it.
Yeah, and again, it's so basically it's like you have this other like I person or character that you try to emulate, and it's just sort of this coping strategy. So like if you are wanting to accomplish something, you have this it's you know how when you do power cards with kids and it's like you want to be like this person. This is the person that you want to model. So, for
Yes.
example,
Okay.
my alter ego, and it can be a real person, it can be a fictional character. My alter ego for my current position working in government is Leslie Knope from Parks and
Oh,
Recreation. Do you
I
watch that
love that.
show?
Oh, yes, I loved that show so much. It's a great show.
Yes. And so many of those things that come up on the show are so accurate about working working in government. And um
Yeah.
yeah, just a lot of things. But there was this one episode where do you remember the river cleanup proposal where she tried to get federal funding to clean up this river in her town? And she was
Yeah.
supposed to meet with somebody, and then they weren't there when she went to this office, and then she left her proposal on this huge stack of binders, and she thought nobody's ever going to read it. And then later on, somebody was like, we found your proposal, and it was the best proposal we ever read, and they offered her a job. And so whenever I get frustrated about something and I feel like no one's listening to me, I'm like, I'm going to do it anyways because this could be my river cleanup proposal. So,
Oh, yes. Yeah.
yes, that's why whenever something's frustrated, I channel my inner Leslie Knope and think, what would she do? She would keep
Yes.
going. So
Yes,
who would be
absolutely.
your alter ego?
Oh my gosh, you just asked me that. You're asking me that, and as soon as you were talking about her, I was like, "Who would my alter ego be?"
I
I
know.
mean, it would
Loaded
definitely
question.
yeah, it would definitely be someone positive and, You know who I like? This is really going to date me, but I really love Robin McGraw. Do you know who, like Phil McGraw's wife?
No.
Dr. Phil McGraw. Have you heard of Dr. Phil?
Oh
Yeah,
yeah. Yeah, of course.
it's
Okay.
his wife. Yeah.
You just think of him as Dr. Phil. Okay. So,
Yes.
yeah.
So I love his wife because, well, she's a mom to two boys, and I'm a mom to two boys. And she talked about how she feels like she was put on this earth to be a mom, and she's very into being physically fit. And when her kids were growing up, of course, and still now.
Hmm.
But I just thought she was such a good mother, and she's such a good role model for being positive, and she's a family person and just really devoted to her family. So I would say she would be a good one for me because I
Yeah.
really like people who are positive, and
Hmm.
my family is really important to me, and being physically fit is also important to me. So she would be my alter ego. Yeah,
Love
she's
it.
definitely one of those that I would think about for sure.
I think you can have multiple alter egos for different situations too.
Yes. Yeah, for sure. I really like her. But yeah, as far as anyone else, I would have to really do some thinking about that.
Yeah.
That's a really good question. I would say anyone who is like any kind of alter ego that I would try to think about would be someone who is positive and
Hmm.
who never gives up and realizes that everything is always working out for them and that
Hmm.
they're going to figure it out. They're not going
Hmm.
to give up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's good.
But I love
I,
Leslie Knope.
I
That's
know there's so many examples that I could give right now, but the river cleanup one is the one that I think about often. Um, and some days I feel more like a Ron Swanson, but
I love
you
Ron
know.
Swanson. I was going to say he's definitely my favorite character in the show.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I actually have a mug that my son gave me, a coffee mug, and it was about where he had to write the apology.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
he got in a
Yeah. I
fight
think
with someone. Gosh, and
oh
now I
yeah,
can't.
yeah. It was with Jeremy Jam.
Yes, and I can't.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, we could literally have a whole episode about talking about all those episodes because
We should,
it is so
there's
funny.
people who do that. You could have a podcast about just talking about shows and how they relate to
Yes,
your job.
there's a. Oh my gosh, I've got to see what that mug. There's a mug. Oh, I regret. Yeah, when he had to give his statement, and
Yes.
it said, "I regret." My statement is, "I regret nothing." The end.
Mhm. Yes. Yes.
So I have that mug, and I love it. It's just because I love Ron Swanson. He's hysterical.
He is. And well, so there's so many good characters on that show. And they're all just really developed. Like
Yes,
you can make a story about all of them. Another
Donna.
one that reminds me of working in government is there's the episode where there's this really cute doctor that comes in and she wants to rent space at this park. And he keeps having her fill out all these government forms. So she'll keep coming back into the office and he's giving her all these forms that make no sense for what she's doing. And I was like, that happens constantly. And I'm in a
Yes,
job where I'm digitizing forms to try to make them less laborious. And so
yes.
I thought that episode was really funny too.
Is
Because
Tom the one that does treat yourself? Is that him?
yes, yes.
Treat yourself.
So
Yeah,
the
him, Donna.
entrepreneur.
They were so funny.
Anyways, maybe we should talk about language therapy now.
Yes, maybe so. Maybe so.
Yeah, so why don't you tell us a little bit about just maybe a little bit about your background? I know that you've got, have a really interesting professional background. So what's been your path and what are you doing now? And then what led you to discover Language Therapy Advanced Foundations, which connected us?
Yes, absolutely. So I first, when I went to college, started off in journalism because I loved to write, and I was on the yearbook staff in high school. And then I wrote for a military newspaper at an Air Force base where my dad was in the military. So we were stationed in Kansas, and we lived in Derby, Kansas. So I wrote for a military paper there. And I just really loved it. I loved writing. I was very into it. And that then I kind of pivoted and went into broadcast journalism because there was a kids show that they were auditioning on campus at Middle Tennessee State University, where I went to college, called Peanut Butter and Jelly. And so I auditioned to be one of the hosts, and a guy named Wes, he was the brother, and I guess I was supposed to be the sister. And so we hosted the show called Peanut Butter and Jelly, and it was a kids show, and we had like kids topics and things on there. Well, one episode we went to the library and there were kids, and I was sitting with the kids. We were reading books, and I was like, I've always known that I loved working with kids, but I was like, I just cannot imagine being fulfilled by anything more than working with kids and helping kids learn. And because it was like a learning segment. And so while I was in the voice and diction, while I was in broadcast journalism, I took a class called voice and diction, which, by the way, my voice is scratchy because I'm getting over being sick. You probably
Yeah. We
but
discussed this as well.
yes, for those who didn't get to hear that before. But the class voice and diction, my instructor was telling me, he said, I think when I was telling him about the show, Peanut Butter and Jelly, and how I just loved working with kids and I was torn, he told me he thought that I would be a great speech pathologist. And so he gave me a book about communication disorders, and I went home and I read that, and I immediately switched my major because speech pathology, communication disorders is what the major was when I was an undergraduate. It embodies so many different things that I love: writing, talking, being in relationships with people, like with families and other professionals, and just being creative and science and English. And so I fell in love with that profession. And after I went to undergrad, I went to graduate school at the University of Tennessee in Knoxville. And I met my best friend, Amy, that brought me to you. In college, in undergraduate, we met in our sorority, but then we were also she was in speech pathology first, and then I got into it. And that's when we really became best friends. And we went to graduate school together, and we pretty much have had the same path. And she discovered your course, Language Advanced Therapy Foundations. Is that the exact name of it?
Language Therapy Advanced Foundation.
Language Therapy Advanced Foundation.
Yeah.
And she was telling me all about it and how amazing it was and how much she loved you and how she was using the principles of your course with her clients. And so then I was interested, and then I discovered it, and then I became a member, and it really changed the comprehension of the kids that I worked with. And I just think about it all the time in every one of my therapy sessions, no matter what stage the child is in, because I work with mostly autistic kids and neurodivergent kids. I work with Gestalt language processors, and no matter what stage they're in, I'm always thinking about the principles from your course, and I incorporate those into our sessions in some way, even if it's not formally on paper. So
that last part is really interesting because I think sometimes you have to implement it for a while, just maybe exactly how I lay it out, but
yes.
It's meant to be a framework, not a rigid curriculum that you can layer onto other things that you can use to develop your own protocols from what I've given or pull into other things.
Yes. Yeah, I've really enjoyed using it, and it really does make a big difference with my clients. The handouts in the are just amazing. The ones where we do deconstructing sentences,
Yeah.
and then constructing sentences, where we work on the passive voice. All of that is just so good, and it's really helped me to better understand comprehension, because I was one of those people in the past that when a kid struggled with comprehension, I thought, okay, this is what we need to do. We need to give them more opportunities to comprehend. We need to give them more
Right.
practice, not realizing how much truly went in to their comprehend. I mean, of course, we all know the basics of language and things, but
Right.
really looking at all of those from a different perspective helped
Hmm.
me to truly understand comprehension more, because so many parents think that their child struggles with comprehension because they just need more practice. They don't understand all the, of course, because they don't have the background in
Right.
speech therapy that we do, what goes into it. And so taking your course really helped me look at it from a different perspective.
Yeah, it's the micro versus the macro, right? Like it makes sense if a student is struggling with inferencing or being able to answer a question, that let's practice inferencing and answering questions, which yeah, you should do that, but also
Mhm.
you need those foundational skills or kids won't be able to fully respond to those other types of tasks. So it's not that we want to take away working on some of those higher level skills, but we need to make sure that we add that layer, especially if we're working with students who have language issues and there's all of the working memory load that it takes to be able to process entire paragraphs and sentences. And if that's not there, then obviously you can ask the same question over and over again. But if you don't understand the sentence structure, you're always going to struggle. And I think it's really interesting because I do Duolingo, which my Spanish is terrible. I could not I could not function very well. I'm sure if I actually practiced, then I would. But where you hear a sentence and you're not expecting the words to be where they are because you don't have that solid sense of syntax. Again, like what words go in what places and what are they doing there? And if you don't have that expectation, the amount of processing that it takes, and again, the working memory load, it just there's nothing left for high level comprehension.
Exactly. Yes.
One of the other things I think I know that we've talked about is this idea of being flexible with different frameworks and how you almost need to. I think people really want a language therapy curriculum. They're like, and I get it because it's so frustrating when you have so many different decisions to make during the day and you're like, I just want somebody to lay it all out for me. But that never works because you have to individualize and you've got to problem solve. But at the same time, you can still come up with your own system with your tools. And I think one of the things specifically that is different about some of the things that you had when you came into the program versus the process that I teach is that you are talking about Gestalt processing. And I know that we've talked about this before, and the way that I understand it is that it's a description of a behavior, but at the same time, you can use the stages as a part of your clinical decision making. So I'm curious how you are using what you've learned in my program and what you've learned with just the different stages, because I know that sometimes people see them as not complementary, but you've been able to use multiple approaches together. So I'd
Yeah.
love to hear about that.
Yes, absolutely. Well, the thing about, I mean, it's just like you were talking about, like one size doesn't fit all.
Hmm.
Every Gestalt language processor I've worked with is very different. I mean, they're similar in ways, but they're also different. What resonates with one is not going to resonate with another. So, just like you go into individual therapy sessions with kids who are not Gestalt language processors, you have to like truly look at the child and where they are and what they need and what they're ready for. And so, when I am, especially when a child is in stage 4, um, that's when they are beginning to become more like analytic language processors, where they are able to build sentences independently with their own grammar and their own words instead of scripted or chunks where they're mixing and matching from like stage
Hmm.
2, for example. And so, what I do in stage 4 in order to help their comprehension is I am giving them a semantic feature about maybe something that they're playing with. So, for example, if we are playing with a farm, like a Fisher Price farm, and they have a pig and they know the word pig, um, I am going to say, if they say pig, I'll say, that's right, it's pink. And then I'll, maybe tell the color, and then I'll give a little bit more information. It's pink and it has a curly tail. And then a pig lives on a farm, where I'm starting to give information and kind of
Mm-hmm.
scaffold out from that single word pig. And I do it without expectation. I don't expect them to imitate
Yeah.
me right away. I'm just simply modeling that information. And I'm finding that these kids are starting to use more adjectives and more descriptive words in their utterances as their language is scaffolding, because I've been doing this. And it's targeted more naturally,
Mm-hmm.
targeted in a meaningful experience for them. I always try to choose a toy, or I'll bring in toys to the session depending on what that child likes. So if I have a child who loves animals, then our sessions can be built around animals. If they love holidays, our sessions can be built around holidays. And I just try to think about what they're interested in and go from there and incorporate those. Definitely, I start with the semantic feature, and then I'll even give like a definition. So I'll bring in a dry erase board, and I will write down like a definition. So, for example, if we're talking about the pig, um, I'll write the sentence: a pig is pink. A pig is an animal. A pig has a curly tail. And I'm just saying that, and I'm modeling it for them. And then I'll write like a definition: a pig is an animal that has a curly tail and lives on a farm. And just giving that and kind of scaffolding all that out, and then
Mm-hmm.
telling their parent what we talked about, and maybe making an experience book with them where they might want to draw pictures. I've got a lot of kids in my caseload who love to draw, and we'll write sentences, and I'll put that information in, like the semantic feature and a simple definition, just to help expand their language from the word pig. Because we always want to presume intelligence and presume that they're
Mm-hmm.
understanding what we're saying to them. And I'm finding with so many of these kids that, especially ones that may use AAC, that
Yeah.
their spoken language or their mouth words, for example, don't exactly match what they're able to say on the device, but that
Mm-hmm.
doesn't mean that they don't understand.
Mm-hmm.
So I try to make sure that I'm exposing them and challenging them, but also meeting them where they are.
I'm going to take a quick break here to talk about Language Therapy Advanced Foundations, my program that helps SLPs create a system for language therapy by focusing on the essential components of vocabulary that help students develop a foundation to support strategic planning, to support high-level processing, and to give them those vocabulary and syntactic skills they need that are going to support literacy and life outcomes. As a clinician, especially if you are in the schools, it can be really difficult to know where to start. In fact, that's probably the biggest pain point that I hear from school SLPs is, where the heck do I start? What is my hierarchy? How can I prioritize all these possible skills when my students have so many different needs and I have so many different people telling me all these different messages about where I should be focusing? What I do in Language Therapy Advanced Foundations is give you a 5-component framework that supports those language skills that are going to build the foundation that students need to support their academic skills, their vocational skills, their reading and writing skills, all those things that are going to help them be successful in school and in life beyond school. That 5-component framework focuses on vocabulary as the core umbrella area where we are supporting students. And the elements that fit under that umbrella are orthography, morphology, phonology, semantics, and syntax. So we're building a foundation for students to have that high level processing, to be able to understand sentences at the word level, at the sentence level, and to be able to formulate complex thoughts for high level strategic planning. To learn more about the program, you can go to drkarenspeech.com/language therapy. Yeah, so I would love to hear more about how you're using it with clients who use AAC, because that's not something I specifically talk about, but I always say that you can take the frameworks that I'm giving you and apply them in different ways. So that's really interesting. But one of the things that jumped out as you were talking was just the idea of modeling without expectation. And yes, of course, you're going to have a goal and you want to eventually see some kind of a tangible output or some kind of an objective improvement with a child's language skills or functioning from therapy. But I think that sometimes people get stuck, especially with language, thinking that there needs to be some kind of a rigid hierarchy or sequence, or that you can't model and facilitate something before kids get to a certain stage. Like you can't work on, even just within the framework that I give and the strategies that I lay out in the program, they think, oh, do you have to get to a certain number of attributes that a child can say when they're describing a word before you can move on to the next stage and work on describing a word with a specific definition syntax, or before you move on to working on complex sentences? No, not necessarily. Or even with syntax, you can work on more complex sentence structures before students are saying them, but it doesn't mean you can facilitate it, doesn't mean that you're expecting them to give you a certain response, and I,
Right.
I love that because it's exposure. I mean, that's how kids will continue to grow.
Yes, absolutely. In fact, I used it today. My last client before I got on this podcast with you, she is a preschooler and she's 4. She is a Gestalt language processor and an AAC user. And she was playing with some sparkly gems. And so she was picking them up and she was just kind of playing with them and playing with them on a tray. And so I modeled the word, well, I had to program the word sparkly into her AAC because I looked on her AAC and I couldn't find it. So I knew that that was an attribute that described the gems that she was playing with. So I've programmed that word into her. It's a touch chat with word power onto her iPad. And I put a picture on there of sparkly that I found from the actual app. And I modeled sparkly gems. So it was written basically on her device where I typed it with 2 separate words. And I said that. And she looked, I didn't point, I didn't say, look, look, look.
Mhm.
Um, but I typed it because she's very engaged with her device and she loves it. And so I put that on there. So I know that she knows, and we know that Gestalt language processors know so many words, so many single words, but they don't always know how to connect those words together,
Mhm.
especially in the earlier stages. And so we give them semantic features or we model semantic features about those so that that can help scaffold their language. And so I do whatever, like if she picked up a cow, for example, and said cow, then I would type big cow or spotted cow. And or if she said horse, I'd say yes, it's brown or it's tall, and just model that on the device. And then I
Mhm.
always have a dry erase board in the session as well, and I write it down there too. So it's really, that's what I love about, you're right. It's like you can mix and match different things depending on the
Mhm.
child and where they are, and without it having to be very rigid. And then I told her mom when we left, I always write down what we did, because even though it's a child-led session, I'm still supporting her executive functioning in the session. And then I'm writing down what we're doing as she chooses it, as she chooses each activity. And then we go out and we talk about what we did to her mom, and we write down, I've written down the sentences, and then I'll use reflexive questions with her. And even if she's not able to answer, I'll still just kind of model from what I think is her perspective. Like, I wonder which one you liked the best. And then maybe if she doesn't answer it, then I'll say, I think you liked the sparkly gems the best because that's what you played with the most. And I really do think, I mean, I know she understands so much more, because today she got mad at me when I asked her a reflexive question. She was playing with the sparkly gems, and she took them and put them in her mouth real quick. And of course, our first reaction is to protect them and their safety. And so I was like, oh, nope, we got to spit it out. And so she immediately spit it out. And then I used a reflexive question. What could happen? And I didn't expect her to answer it, but I still modeled it. What could happen if we put that in her mouth? And I know she understood it, because she immediately screamed at me and looked at me. And then she typed the word no on her device. Like, she didn't want me to tell her that. And so I was explaining that to her mom at the end, and she said, oh yes, she definitely understands that. And she said when she gets mad about, something, she'll scream, which I've known this little girl for a while, so I do know that about her, but it's very rare that she does that. So but in that moment, I knew that she understood what I was modeling, even though she wasn't able to say it with mouth words. She could tell me no on her device. And I mean, she could say no, but she wasn't able to give more information, but that didn't mean that she didn't understand me.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's really interesting how you can take a concept like, you know, like we were talking about the semantic features where you're describing with a child who has a lot of verbal ability, who's able to have a conversation with you, and you can talk about how they can use self-questioning to come up with different features, or even just you knowing the concept of semantic features, you can pull it in to scaffold like you just described, where you're like, okay, you think, okay, I'm eventually going to hope that we work up to the point where we could describe a word verbally using these features, but now we can just start pairing them with words. And since you're already aware as a clinician about those different features, you can just pull them into another activity in another context that is child-led or play-based, or like you
Yeah.
said, for someone who is using an AAC device.
Yeah, it's amazing too, because some of the things that she'll say on the device, like when she's not, maybe not necessarily when she's not with me, but at school, for example, they took a picture of she loves cupcakes. So it was somebody's birthday, and they passed out cupcakes, and every child could choose between a chocolate and a vanilla. So I guess one cupcake had vanilla frosting, like white frosting. One had chocolate frosting. So she chose the vanilla frosting cupcake. So the teacher was kind of passing them out, and like people started eating her cupcakes, and she ended up typing on her device, cupcake better with chocolate.
Wow, that's
And
impressive.
I had no idea that I personally, I don't remember modeling the word better on the device. Um, Maybe I've used the word with, I don't know. But it blew my mind. Like, I was so proud of her, and her mom cried, like, because the teacher took a picture of it and sent it to her. She's like, literally, she was passing. It's a small classroom. It's a self-contained classroom. And it was not very long before she typed this in, because she kind of regretted that she did not choose the chocolate cupcake.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
just for her to have, with verbally or like with her mouth words, she wasn't able to say that. But on the device, I mean, it also showed me that she's reading a lot more than we realized,
Hmm.
which, I mean,
Yeah.
I knew she could read some, but I mean, for her to find that on the device, I thought that was incredible. I knew she knew chocolate cupcake, but for her to say cupcake better
Hmm.
and with
Yeah,
chocolate.
to be able to connect together. That's
Yeah.
why with syntax, and I get a lot of questions. I get questions about morphology as well, where people will say, well, I can't work on these harder sentence types because this child is not able to say these simpler sentence types. But again, it's not that you're expecting them to say it a certain way when you're modeling. You're expecting facilitation and you're just again you're trying to expand from where they are and just to assume that they don't know how to string words together just because you haven't seen it in a certain way. I mean, a lot of times, like you said, they know more than we think, or they're capable of more if we give them the facilitation and the opportunities and don't assume that certain skills are too hard just because of, we think that things need to work within some kind of hierarchy. Not that the concept of a hierarchy isn't useful. I mean, not
Right.
that the stages don't help you to understand how to scaffold. I think that's where it's most useful, where it just gives you more ability as a clinician to problem solve about how might I introduce this in different stages, or how might I strategically make this activity harder or easier to adjust and see how they respond.
Yes, absolutely. So that's where I really start. I really start, even if they're not quite in stage 4, but I really feel like they I mean, I just assume that kids understand
Hmm.
because we do always want to presume. And they say competence, but then there's I think her name's Dr. Vaisharathi. I'd have to look up her name. That's probably wrong, but she's on Instagram and she has a son named Sid, and he's autistic and has Down syndrome. And she says we should always presume, she said, people say competence, but I say presume intelligence because we do want to assume that they're intelligent and
Hmm.
their body may not present that way, but that doesn't mean that their mind is not intelligent.
Hmm.
And so I do, I try to talk to them like I would any other child. And of course, I do take into account where their language is
Hmm.
verbally,
Yeah.
but, still just assuming that they understand and treating them like I would any other child who,
Hmm.
um, who is that age, and reading them, there might be adapted books that we'll read, but then also it's important to read books that they, are in like, because this little girl loves Disney, and she will sit there at home and watch an entire Disney movie, and she'll look through books that her sister is a little bit older than her. She'll look through and she'll get to a page and she'll say some of the words on the page, and maybe it's that she's remembering those, maybe that because someone's read them to her before, but it's just, just thinking about other kids her age and what they're interested in and trying to take that into account during my session so that she never feels like, I'm talking down to her or anything.
Hmm. That's challenging with the level of interest with literacy. I mean, when you're thinking about picking books that are interesting for kids,
Yes.
especially if they're depending on where their reading skills are. I know that's a challenge for a lot of the clinicians that work with high schoolers or kids in junior high that maybe they're not able to read the same books that their peers are, but they're interested in the same topics. So
Yes.
that is definitely challenging.
Yes. And, one thing I've been doing with that is making books on Canva for
Oh
some
yeah,
of
that's a
my
good idea.
kids who struggle. I got that. I'm not going to claim that that was my idea because it wasn't. But
Hmm.
thinking about what their interests are, like I have a Gestalt language processor in stage 5 that does not like it when you try to read him a book. He just is not interested. And But when we take a topic that he really loves, for example, he loves storybots, and we make a book on Canva about storybots, like a video that he likes, and take lines from the video and type those in and take pictures. And obviously, like for copyright reasons, I'm not selling it or doing anything with it other than
Yeah.
just, making the book on Canva. He loves that and he lights up and he's able to be involved and he learns like how to type the words and like how to spell the words, and he'll learn about quotations and commas and periods, and like he'll pick the sentences that he wants to type, and then he'll help me pick the pictures, and then we'll print it, we'll laminate it, and then he'll read it out loud to his mom when she's, after our session. And so since that's a special interest of his, we make books, and I try to incorporate some of the language concepts into those books to make it like challenge him a little bit more. But
Mm-hmm.
it's interesting to him because he's interested in storybots, and he's interested in hands-on things, and he's
Mm-hmm.
able to help me make it on the computer, and he loves that.
I
So
think just maybe it has to do, and this is me just speculating, but having to do with just being involved in the process or feeling, like you feel useful when you can make something. Not that reading a book that somebody else has written can't feel useful as well, but like you said, maybe it's different for him to be involved in the process. And I think about just the way that we would support students who need help with executive functioning, where we're making different visual strategies and calendars, and how important it is to not just make a schedule for a child and plop it in front of them. They need to be involved in the thought process, because literally executive functioning is the work that you do before the calendar exists, to think
yes.
that you need a strategy, to be thinking far enough ahead to create something. So I could
Mhm.
see I could see that being woven into some other work that you might end up doing with him in the future as well.
Yes, I've been using a lot of reflexive questions with him, and then he started using some of those with me. Um, so like, if I am saying something to, correct, maybe like there's a dog that's barking outside of the clinic or, something, and I'll kind of make a comment about that. And maybe I'm raising my voice about the dog barking outside, and he'll say, "What should we do when we're yelling?" Just kind of, he'll
Hmm.
use that reflexive question back to me, and of course mix it up a little bit, but because he doesn't quite understand how to use it, but he does understand what a reflexive question is, and it really has helped
Hmm.
him become aware of his own behaviors and just like reasons why we do things. And yeah, so I could go on and on about it. Executive functioning, I love it. I'm
Yeah,
learning a lot about
that would
that.
be another episode.
For sure.
Well, and there is, with good language therapy, there is executive functioning work embedded into how you would do it. Like when you're describing a word, you would be using self-questioning. When you're thinking about a syntactic structure, you have to use your situational awareness to know where to look and what to pay attention to. And you could say
Yeah.
the same thing about doing more specific word study focused on morphology and orthography as well. So those are there's lots of opportunities to just embed executive functioning work into anything that you're doing, but it's really important in the how of language therapy. There's the what of what are you doing, but how you are doing it, and then that's where you can layer in those things like reflexive questioning or
Hmm.
other types of strategies.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, I would love to hear a little bit more about where people could find you. And I know that you have some good resources and you share a lot of success stories and information on social media.
Yeah, sure. So I am on Instagram, and they can find me at Empowering Speech Services. I'm actually based in Alpharetta, Georgia. So I have a clinic in Alpharetta, Georgia. So you can also find me on empoweringspeechservices.com. You can go there to find out more about my clinic if you want to work with me in the Alpharetta, Georgia area. And I'm on TikTok as well. And I'm on LinkedIn, and I just got on Threads too,
Mm,
which that's a totally different. It's interesting how the dynamics of the people on
yeah,
each platform can be so different. People can be kind of nasty on Threads because
really?
yes, I've
Yeah.
found that just in different, posting different things. Um, yeah, there's definitely different vibes on each platform, but those are the places I tend to live the most are Instagram and TikTok. I'm on
Okay.
Facebook too, but I really enjoy Instagram and TikTok the most.
I have been on Threads, but I don't really do anything with it. Like I'm on there and I post there, but I don't spend a lot of time on the platform. I'm I'm on the old people social media. I'm on Facebook. And I mean I'm on Instagram too. And technically Twitter, but again, I kind of miss the Twitter party.
Me too. I did too. I used to have a Twitter account. I still have it, but I don't really use it. It's my personal account. Um, but yeah, oh my gosh, I just completely lost my train of thought. What were we talking about?
We were talking about Twitter, but it's funny because it makes us like we sound old because we're calling it Twitter.
Oh,
Like, how
yes.
long
Oh,
has it
yeah,
been
because
X?
now it's X,
No one's
right?
ever catching on. It's always going to be Twitter to me.
Oh, yes. Oh, my kids, my boys are 21 and 22, and they call me Boomer all the time. Like, because
But you're not a boomer,
I'm
right?
54. I don't know. What is a boomer? Like, what
Okay,
age
so
would that be?
we just had this leadership presentation about all the different generations, and it has to do with in management and employee onboarding. And I am in oh man, I can't remember the date ranges, but the speaker was like, we need to break them up more. Like you need to break up the generations more. And I can't remember what the age ranges are now, but I am I'm like a hybrid of a millennial and Gen X, but Gen X, like just barely. But I have a little more millennial in me because I was born in 1980. So I'm not like the older Gen Xers. She had it separated into subcategories. So
I'm
I
definitely
think
the older Gen
you would
X.
be,
I'm Gen X. I
okay,
was
yeah.
born in 1972,
Okay, yeah. So
but
we're the
they
same,
tease
but
me.
I'm closer to the millennials.
Okay. Yes, they definitely make fun of me because of that. But yeah, on Threads, I it's crazy. I don't when I first got on there, I just was started posting about my business, but then I just made a random post because my dog passed away. He was 15
I
a
remember
couple
that.
months ago. Yeah, and so I posted. I cannot believe how many people were engaged with that post, like just posting something random, which I mean, isn't that
Hmm.
the way it works, right?
Yeah.
And then just post anytime I post about my dogs, that seems to get a lot more engagement versus the things that I'm posting related to executive functioning or Gestalt language processing so
Yeah. Maybe I
it's
should start posting
interesting.
dog pictures. I do have some.
Oh, yes. What kind of dog do you have?
So we had to I remember when you were posting about your dog because we had just put our yellow lab down. It's been about a year. And then we moved last year. So we were kind of glad that we didn't have a pet. And so we have to get the mud situation in our backyard figured out and then
Oh,
we're
yes.
gonna get another dog. But I don't know. I don't know what we're gonna do. Something kind of sporty. But we can't, I don't know, maybe Lab, Golden, Vizsla, one of those, something like
Oh my
that.
gosh. I love labs so much. I had a
I know,
chocolate
they're
lab
so
and
good. What do you
his
have?
I have a border collie right now,
Oh, that's a good
but
one
I
too.
I did have a chocolate lab named
Oh,
Danny, and he passed away when he was 9, and because he had a mass that ruptured,
mm,
and yeah, it was really sad. And so and then I had 3 all at once, and then a Great Pyrenees Australian Shepherd mix named Luke. and he's the one that passed away a couple months ago. He was 15. He had a liver mass that, so he got to the point where he just wasn't comfortable. And
Yeah.
so,
Isn't that a pretty long lifespan for those
it is.
breeds?
It is. Yes. Yes. I was really fortunate to have him
Yeah.
that long. And then my border collie's 14. And so he's a good breed too, but border collies definitely, I got him when he was a puppy. So they are so much work, and then they calm down
Hmm.
eventually. But I mean, I walk him a lot. My boyfriend's my neighbor, and he walks him a lot for me. And he's an, he's in acupuncture right now because he has osteoarthritis. Yeah, just to make sure that I want him to live as long as I can. But
Hmm.
yeah, I like those big dog breeds the best. But labs are
Same.
great dogs.
Hmm.
Labs, and
Yeah,
I
they're
pet
so
sit for my
good.
friends, and those little dogs they're a lot more work because they have their personalities can be.
They do. They do have big personalities. I mean, I don't think I could dislike any dog, but
Yes,
I
oh, same,
definitely
yes.
like the I would say that maybe not a Great Dane. Like I probably would we probably wouldn't do that,
Yeah,
but a lab or something like that.
yes, oh my gosh, labs they are the best. They're so funny. They're definitely mischievous. They're definitely Danny kept us in the emergency vet quite a bit because he was always getting into something, like always eating something that he shouldn't eat, and, he was a lot. But I miss his personality. He was such a fun dog.
Our dog would she would with the chewing, she would get my stepdaughter's just a toy and she would bring it out and it would be in the middle of the floor, but she wouldn't chew it. Like she would just get it out and put it out on the floor and we would come
Oh,
back and it would just be there.
that's
So,
so cute.
yeah,
Yeah, Danny would
she
chew
was so
things
good.
up.
She knew what toys she was allowed to chew. So,
That's good. My
hopefully we'll
dog
get
did.
another one like that.
Yes, yes. That would be great.
So anyway, social media strategy about executive functioning or language therapy, which we both do and talk about, but also post pictures of our dogs. And recently
Yes.
I've been trying to go with travel pics and workout pics without being too extra about it. So
Yes, I
that's what,
loved your video about doing the pull-ups. That
yeah,
was
I
amazing.
was like, do I want to post this? I'm
I
just gonna
love
do
it that you did that.
it.
I've always wanted to be able to do a pull-up, but there's always I've learned a lot from Sarah Brashears. Have you heard of her?
Yes, yes,
The
yeah,
Social Moguls.
yes, yes, yeah.
Okay, she's amazing. We're not for everyone. Like, there's going to be someone who is for a certain type of person, right?
Hmm.
There are going to be a lot of people who don't like me. They're going to think I'm too open. I give too much information. I
Hmm.
put myself out there, and that's okay. Those aren't my people,
Yeah.
you know? And so by you sharing more about like your physical fitness, that like makes me feel more connected to you because I love physical fitness, and
Yeah, thank
I
you
think
for sharing
showing
that.
that, yeah, so I think showing part of like, because when I first got into social media, I'm like, well, it's so saturated out there.
It
There's so
is,
many
but
people talking about Gestalt language processing, but not everyone's going to relate to every single person talking about that. They're going to find the one that they feel like they relate to the most. And so that's why it's also important to talk about yourself and what you're interested in, because that person who is more like you is going to be more drawn to your content.
hmm.
And so that's something that I've never forgotten. I've learned that from Sarah Brashears. And then you want to tend to buy from people. Not that that's the main reason I'm on social media, but I do have a Teachers Pay Teacher store,
Hmm.
empowering speech services, and people, when they follow me and connect with me, then they're going to be more likely to go to my digital products store and find products because they're interested in what I have to say. Then maybe they might be more interested in buying from me versus someone else. Of course, maybe not. Maybe they're going to
Hmm.
go somewhere else, and that's okay. But I think it's important for people to see the human side of other people, you know?
Yeah, I definitely think you can it makes people feel a kinship with you or just The other thing is that I have been thinking a lot about parallels with how I would handle work versus how I handle life and how I have used different principles in fitness that I also used when I was trying to figure out language therapy. Like there's so many different parallels with some of the stuff that I've been, worked through personally. So I sometimes there's transfer but also when you're trying to help people figure out work and that how does it not end up just
Yeah.
overlapping into your life, like how do you
Right.
not think about that kind of thing as well when you're thinking about how you're planning your sessions. I mean, there's so many different things that could derail you in life that if you don't have the whole picture, then it's
Yeah.
hard to get it all together.
And I love that analogy you're talking about, like physical fitness and work. And,
Hmm.
you know, there's stories, like telling a story about that. And like people can relate to physical fitness and maybe just seeing how those two connect, the physical fitness to the language might help them more clearly understand your program more if you
Hmm.
tell a story about it, like how you feel like there's the parallels.
Yeah.
Um, so because people are so interested in the storytelling.
Hmm. It's definitely more engaging. The big theme right now for myself is decision fatigue. I'm always a lot of decisions day to day that I
Oh,
have to make.
something. I'm gonna
Did we
find
cut
this
out?
for 1 second.
Yeah.
I am reading this book called Stories That Stick, and it's by
Oh, I've
Kendra
heard.
Hall, and it's
Okay.
called and I'll share it with you, but how
Okay.
storytelling can captivate customers, influence audiences, and transform your business. But she's talks about how important and powerful storytelling is
Hmm.
when you're building engagement with other people, and just
Yeah.
because that can help them relate to you. So that's a long way of me saying you posting that video of doing the pull-ups. I was like, that is so cool because I've always wanted to do that. I've never been able to do a pull-up.
Well,
Um,
maybe you'll be able to do it this year.
I know
Just,
you need to give me all the tips for that because
yeah, so again, the strategy was, well, so again, it was when I had foot surgery and I couldn't do other stuff that I normally like to do, like running. And we had a pull-up bar that was in our bedroom, and then we switched our rooms around. So the pull-up bar was in the office. And so I would just a couple times a day do a set of however many I could do. And I would, for a time, I would say, I'm going to do 25 in a 24-hour
oh
period.
my
And so I
gosh.
would just sprinkle it through the day. But it was helpful to do the either you pull yourself up and then lower down, or you put a little resistance band around your foot and do the whole pull up motion,
Okay.
and then gradually decrease the thickness of the band until you can do one or two. Like when you can do a set of two or three, that's where you kind of the flywheel starts going because then you can start to do more sets. So,
Oh, that's so cool.
yeah,
That's
pull
amazing.
up consistency over perfection. Advice
Yes.
for language therapy and advice for doing pull-ups as well. Same
Yes.
thing.
Yeah, that would be a great post on Instagram.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we will link to all of your resources, your Teachers Pay Teachers store, your Instagram, and any social accounts you want to share. And I don't know if are we connected on LinkedIn? We should be. I'll send you a connection request after this. But yeah, we'll share
Great.
your profile too.
That'd be great. Thank you so much. It's been so fun being on here. I love talking to people and learning more about other people. And it's always fun to connect with other
Yeah,
professionals.
definitely. Well, this was fun. I'm glad we made
Yeah.
it happen. Thanks for being
Yes.
on.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for listening. Be sure to check the show notes for all of the links where you can go to learn about all of the great resources that we mentioned in this episode, as well as where you can go to learn more about Language Therapy Advanced Foundations, my program that helps SLPs and other professionals working on language to create a system for language therapy. You can learn more about the program at drkarenspeech.com/language therapy. As always, thank you so much for listening. It helps me so much if you leave me a rating or review wherever you listen to your podcasts. And if you found this useful, please feel free to share it with your friends or colleagues. If you are interested in being a guest, if you would like to invite me to be a guest on your show, or if you have a suggestion for a guest, please send me an email at talktome@drkarenspeech.com. Thank you for listening, and I will see you next time.